You're listening to SM Media, the number one place for exclusive Scottish football content.
Hi folks, and welcome to the latest episode of the SM Media Scottish Football Show. I'm Scott McPike. It's an absolute pleasure to be your host as always. We are going to uncover a very busy weekend. The lower leagues came to an end. We are now in the playoff. We're recording this during several playoff games, so we'll discuss them later on. We're also going to discuss some championships. We'll touch on that in a wee second. We're going to welcome this weekend's guest. First of all, it's a pleasure to welcome onto the show, making his debut, first of all, James McKenzie.
Hi Scott, how are we doing, pal?
Yep, it's an absolute pleasure. Thanks very much for coming on. And we're also delighted to be joined by Connor Ryan.
Hi Scott, thanks for having me on.
No worries. It's good to have you both on. It's going to be a very busy show. We will start at Tynecastle. Celtic wrapped up the title with a 2-0 victory away to Hearts. Goals from Kyogo and O sealed the championship. James, we'll touch on it with you both. We'll start with James. Again, it's been coming for a while. We've known it's going to be just a matter of time before Celtic wraps it up. Wasn't the best performance, but it didn't need to be. And it's just showing this Celtic team just thoroughly deserving champions.
Yeah, it wasn't vintage Ange Postecoglou's Celtic, but truth be told, we've been waiting on the title since probably about February, March time. But it wasn't Celtic at their best, but it was probably quite typical that as champions do, they get the job done when they're not at their best. And when the fringe players are stepping up, coming off the bench, it's just a real show of champions. Celtic have done it time and time again under Ange Postecoglou, where they've not been at their best, whether it be a late goal, a last-minute winner to get the crowd going crazy. It's just these real moments where the champions shine through. And Celtic done that again at Tynecastle. Again, not vintage Celtic, but they get the job done. And now they can sort of take their time with these remaining fixtures as they come before they look ahead to potentially Ange's first treble as Celtic manager.
Yeah, and it's the one thing, Connor, that's kind of caught my eye, obviously. Like, 4 games left, they're 1 goal away from tying Brendan Rodgers' Invincibles side for the most goals scored in a season. And that just shows you the relentless attitude of this Celtic team. I know it's a bit of a cliche, the we never stop mentality, but it's certainly on show. Like, they haven't gave up, they haven't stopped, and it's just been so consistent. Only dropped, I think, 7 points the whole season so far. That's the sign of a proper championship team.
Yeah, it certainly is. I mean, obviously, Celtic have had goals kind of coming from all over the park as well. Obviously, about to equal that record and will absolutely beat it, let's be honest. Obviously, the main focal point of that's been Kyogo hitting 30 goals with none of them being penalties, which is extraordinary in itself. But I agree with what James was saying. There was just kind of absolutely no stopping this Celtic side this season. That kind of was just coming. Like, the league has pretty much been wrapped up since that February sort of March point, and it just didn't really look as though Rangers were going to catch them, really, just with how relentless Celtic actually are. But the next few games, obviously, can kind of take the foot off the gas and maybe try a few different players, like maybe like Summers and stuff like that. Maybe Rocco Vata can get a couple of games in there too.
And it's that kind of, James, that squad depth as well. Like, obviously, Carter Vickers been injured, Johnson been injured. The defence did look a bit ropey during the game. I do think, obviously, that there will be nobody will really care, to be honest, in the next 4 games what happens. But you do see just the squad depth, like Haksabanovic coming on, obviously, getting his goal, Moy, Abada. There's so much strength and depth, and it's just shown over the course of the season. Who's been coming at some of the kind of standouts? Because I know, like, when I'm looking, I'm thinking Hatate's been so good this season. Carter Vickers, again, just a mainstay in that defence. You've got McGregor, Jota. There's a lot of players in there who deserve recognition for this season.
Yeah, there's so many players that have impressed. It's really hard to pick from. I was looking at the Celtic Player of the Year awards. I think it was about a week ago it came out. And you're struggling to pick from options. People have been saying Greg Taylor was the front runner for the Player of the Year award for months, really. But since the break, you've had stars such as Aaron Moy and others really come along and shine in that Celtic team. That shows the strength and depth that they have. And these next few games that seem like dead rubber games, there's going to be so much importance in them to these players who are on the fringes at the moment. Likes of your Tomoki Iwatas, who haven't really had the minutes that they'd be looking for. He was the J-League Player of the Year before he came to Celtic. So he'll be looking to really make the most of his minutes before this cup final comes up. The same with the likes of Yuki Kobayashi, with Cameron Carter-Vickers out until the start of next season. Kobayashi really needs to make a name for himself in these few games coming up before that cup final comes up, because I thought he looked pretty shaky against Hearts. He's not playing with the most settled centre back in that Celtic backline. I'm sure we can all agree that Cameron Carter-Vickers is the main figure in that Celtic backline. So Yuki Kobayashi hasn't played with him in the minutes he's played. He's played 3 games, I think, now, and they've all been alongside Carl Starfelt. It allows Starfelt to play in that preferred right centre-back role. But Kobayashi, if he really wants to make an impression at Celtic, these next 2 games are going to be vital, especially with Carl Starfelt being linked away this summer.
Yeah, absolutely. I think as well, obviously, it's going to be an interesting summer because when your team's flying the way they are, offers are going to come in. So it's going to be interesting to see what kind of happened in the summer, both in and out. Connor, I think it's safe to say going back to the game, it did change in the red card. Obviously, it's been a bit of a dubious red card. We'll get into referee decisions perhaps during the show. What do you think? I thought it was a red. I think there's not very much going in his favour if you think that's not a red card. I think Hearts after that just struggled, and I think it was only a matter of time before Celtic wore them down.
Yeah, my kind of first viewing was I thought it was a bit dubious, but after watching it numerous times, I mean, a player with Maida's kind of pace, he is going to get to that ball and he is going to get a shot away at that opportunity. So I thought it was the right decision to overturn it. And as you said, after that, it kind of was just a matter of time before Celtic found that goal. Obviously, Celtic did score again, I guess, at half time, ruled offside, but it was kind of like a sign of things to come. Like the floodgates were just going to open. And obviously, a lovely ball in behind. And Kyogo then eventually getting on the end of a ball into the box. And that gave Celtic the leads. And then obviously, O's goal was just as good. And another lovely ball into the box as well. You see that Postecoglou was impressed with what he's seen on the park. And yeah, that was kind of just the game wrapped up, to be honest, after that.
James, Hearts obviously they haven't lost ground in the race for third. They still have to make up 5 points. They play Aberdeen in a couple of weeks. It's going to be a massive occasion as well. What does that kind of result do? Because I don't think, I think a lot of people thought they were going to lose the game, and I think a lot of people thought Aberdeen weren't going to beat Rangers. So it's been a big weekend for Hearts without actually changing very much.
Yeah, it's been really surprising how Hearts have been this season, actually. When you look at last season, they were pretty much the front runners for that third place. It was Celtic and Rangers in their title battle for the top. Then it was Hearts far and away in third place. Mm-hmm. You would think that third place was theirs to lose this season, but it's been a real drop-off, which saw the sacking of one of the most, he looked like one of the most settled managers in the league at a point, in Robbie Neilson. And it's just been a real struggle for Hearts this second half of the season, and probably gaining that third place spot is going to be a real task. That Aberdeen game is going to be arguably the most important game of their season. It's going to be like a cup final almost. So that'll be a real tell of how things are going to go for Hearts and what next season holds.
Yeah, absolutely. It's going to be a very interesting end to the season. Let's move to the other game on Sunday. Rangers 1, Aberdeen 0. Not a game for great viewing. Very, very dull and drab affair. Probably the press conference was probably the more entertaining than the game. Obviously, Connor, Alfredo Morelos is going. I think we all expected that news to come. For £1 million, you've had a great value for money in terms of that, but as well, it's kind of a sad end to his career at Ibrox. The line that Bill came out with was the attitude of the forward line changed and not in a good way. I don't think that makes for great reading when you look at that. Like, if a forward can come on and actually make a team worse, then I don't think that makes for great reading.
No, absolutely not. And I mean, you kind of seen Bill said just in the past couple of weeks that he was one of the main players that you wouldn't see at Ibrox next season, pretty much confirming he's leaving. But at the same time, with the return that he's put in for the little transfer he paid, he's been arguably, I'd say, probably the best striker since McCoist that Rangers have had. His European goal contributions can't be underestimated. Obviously, it took him he kind of really did struggle against Celtic a lot, but he certainly made up for it and pretty much against everyone else. And he'll be a big miss for Rangers.
James, it obviously from now Rangers are now at a stage where it's just about next season, just trying things out. There was a lot of changes to the Rangers side. Obviously, Robbie McCrory came in. I thought he did pretty well. I thought you saw like Yilmaz, Matondo, Hadji. I thought they all looked good. And again, it's just these are 4 games where Rangers can just test with what they've got and look ahead to the future, because Morelos isn't going to be there. I'm very surprised if Kent will be as well. You've got, I don't think Hollander. I think there's a lot of changes going to happen in the summer. And I thought Cantwell was really good again. I think this is just a project for the next 4 games.
Yeah, this summer is going to be really important for Rangers. Arguably the most important summer Rangers have had since they came back into the Premiership, because it appears Celtic are really pulling away with the sort of standing at the top of the league. So how they act in this summer is going to be really telling. If players like Alfredo Morelos and Ryan Kent, who have been the most prized assets at the club for years, they've been the star players. They've been the stars of the run to the Europa League final, amongst other successes that the club has had. And the players have signed that seemed like the guys to replace them, the likes of your Matondos, as you mentioned, they look like a player could potentially replace Ryan Kent if you were to move on. They've failed to impress. So with what looks like little funds to have to spend this summer, how they act in this transfer window is going to be really telling for how they do in the future.
It wouldn't be a weekend in Scottish football without having to talk about conspiracy theories and VAR, but we're certainly going to give it a go here. We've seen the usual. Aberdeen. That is Connor. I'm going to come to you in this. Duke does get fouled, but it isn't a penalty. That's my honest opinion of it. I don't know if you agree, but that then leads to what we've seen today. We're recording this on Tuesday. This is probably going out on Thursday, so Wednesday's we've maybe resulted in World War III and Vladimir Putin's going to come along with his nuclear weapons or something like that. And that's where we're at with this. We can't have a simple conversation without something stupid getting mentioned. Explain to me how Duke, Barry Robson obviously is a wee bit of a rant about VAR. VAR can't overturn that because it's not a penalty. It's not in the box. Nobody's saying it's a penalty. It's silly, classic Scottish football nonsense.
Yeah, it just kind of feels as though the rules seem to kind of shift every week, a different week pretty much. But at the same time, VAR is obviously there to look at penalties and red cards. It's not there to look at free kicks. And in my opinion, like the contact starts just outside the box, so it's like you just can't give that. You know what I mean? But it is a foul.
It's a foul.
You did say.
Yeah, I don't think anybody's disagreeing it's a foul, but for them it to lead to a media outlet saying, "Or Rangers haven't had any penalties this season," and is it because of Kevin Clancy getting death threats? I mean, what is that? It's a foul, and it leads to that. It's just ridiculous, and Scottish media just hype it up. James, you anything to add? Because I could probably go on all day about this.
I'm in agreement with Connor there on the fact that it's not a foul. I think the point at the start of the penalty is something that probably could be raised. It's a crazy statistic, in all honesty. But if you've got 2 Celtic fans on here that are in agreement that Rangers didn't deserve to have a penalty given against them in that situation, then it probably tells you what it needs to be. It's definitely not a foul, in my opinion.
I can
Well,
see it being
a foul, not a red card, I mean to say.
It's not. It's a foul, but it's one of those where it's a free kick, and if it's a free kick, we move on. I don't get how that leads to. I mean, there's been seasons where Celtic haven't had penalties in this. I've never heard anything been mentioned about that. Do you know what I mean? It just strikes me as absolute stupidness, and I just don't understand how we end up talking about that. And it kind of, again, I thought Aberdeen were quite good in the game. I thought they had a lot of. I think Duke is one of the standout players in the league. Like I've said that for a while. Like just the way he's come in, he's added so much to that Aberdeen team. I think the resurgence over the past few months, I think you put down to him more than anybody. Just the way he's taking these chances. I thought it was a bit raw at the start of the season, but he's just found his feet in a better system. I think he's done really well, and I think Aberdeen will struggle to keep him in the summer. I really do. We'll move into the bottom side of the table. Let's get some big results over the weekend. Ross County 2, Livingston 0. James, Ikaviti and Samuel with the goals. Could be a huge result for Ross County. Obviously, gives them a bit of a fighting chance.
Yeah, I think Iacoviti, one of the goal scorers, has been a real sort of top player for Ross County in the last few years, especially as a Celtic fan, I see him pop up against Celtic all the time. He always gets in there with a goal of some sort. But Ross County, they've still got a lot to play for this season. They've got a real fight there at the bottom of the table. Malky Mackay, with what he had last season, it was arguably one of the most impressive sides in the league last season. Regan Charles Cook is the star player. But obviously with him moving on, it's led to a real sort of free fall from where they were last season. But there's a couple of massive games to come before the end of the season. Dundee United and Killie on the last day is the real game to watch ahead of the season coming to a close.
Yeah, you'll need to pay-per-view to watch it because you're not going to get it in Sky, which is another thing I could rant about. Connor, Ross County, obviously, really good result for them. Livingston, on the other hand, they can kind of they're kind of halfway to the beach, aren't they? It's just a case of they're not in any relegation trouble. It's just going to be a bit of a slow 5 games. And again, it does lead, though, they have been poor for a few weeks. There's not been they had a really good start and they've kind of struggled since then. And I know David Martindale will be looking towards next season already, but you don't want to get too much in a ruck.
Yeah, obviously they'll be kind of wanting to finish off these last 2 games, even though they don't really matter that much. They still want to end them positively. I guess it is an opportunity to kind of try out new things. It's kind of similar to kind of Motherwell's situation where it's just kind of get the games out the way and then just see what you can kind of try new things. But yeah, Livingston have been a bit of a rut recently. Few poor results so far. But for County, on the other hand, absolutely brilliant result. And it really shakes up that relegation battle. Especially, I imagine we're probably going to be that Dundee United result as well.
We certainly will, yeah. St Johnstone beat Dundee United 1-0. St Johnstone's first win of 2023, which I think is very telling. James, a change of shape certainly helps St Johnstone there. Gordon with a goal. Just it looked a completely different St Johnstone team. I think St Johnstone have been woeful the past few months, and I've said to a lot of people, I said St Johnstone just looked to me as if they're going to go on a slide down the way. That could be a massive result come the end of the season.
Yes, George, they seem to have really gone backwards every season since Callum Davidson won that double. It's been a real sort of free fall for St Johnstone after all that progress that Callum Davidson made in that initial season. It's back where they started before Callum Davidson came in. So I think this summer, the next managerial appointment they make to replace Callum Davidson's success he brought to the club in that initial period, that'll be massive because they seem back at the start where they won in the first place when they had Tommy Wright, and it was just sort of finishing 8th or 9th was sort of the norm for St John's, and they just accepted that, and they sort of thought success was out of the realms of possibility. So where they go next, especially this summer, will be something really telling for St Johnstone.
Connor, I thought obviously Dundee United, the red card didn't help, and I thought what impressed me about St Johnstone is obviously Stephen Fletcher being the danger man for Dundee United. I thought the 2 centre halves handled him really well, and obviously going to a back 4 instead of a back 3. Gordon and Considine, I thought handled them really well, and I thought that was a big difference.
Yeah, it certainly was. It was with what I've managed to see of the game, St Johnstone's defending was really good, to be honest. I did think as well though that Stephen Fletcher was really unlucky, obviously hitting the bar. A couple of big chances flashed across the box that he just couldn't go on the end of. But big result for St Johnstone, obviously. They were also unlucky as well. I'm sure they hit the post as well at one point.
Yeah,
so, Dundee United just need to kind of just pick themselves up again and pretty much just go again. Because still 4 games to go now, so still 4 games to go against your relegation rivals. It's definitely not over yet.
No, it certainly isn't. We'll move into Motherwell beating Kilmarnock 2-0. We'll stay with you for this corner. 2-0 victory for Motherwell. Kevin Van Veen again. He's rightly had the plaudits, but I thought Motherwell as a whole, they were so good at just keeping that. And I think as well, just the upturn they've had has been brilliant.
Yeah, obviously Van Veen making into that team of the season, deservedly so. He's been absolutely brilliant, and you'd probably expect quite a good fee for him at the end of the season. I do think he will go. I just don't exactly know where. Obviously, it was good to see that he said that he'll make sure it's good move for the club as well as himself. But Motherwell were brilliant. Obviously, Van Veen's goal, brilliantly taken on. Not many players in the league can do that like he does. That touch that he took down. Also as well, the first goal by Spittle. I thought that was a brilliant wee touch in the box as well to get that finish away. However, a bit of a concern for Kilmarnock, I could say. Obviously keeps them right chucked in it. However, Motherwell can kind of, as I previously mentioned, they can kind of just relax now, just kind of try out some new things as well. Clear of that relegation spots, which kind of makes me think, is the split a little bit unfair? I don't really know.
It's another thing I could rant about all day.
Yeah, exactly. I could go on that for hours, but no, very impressive Motherwell, I must say.
Yeah, absolutely. On the other hand, though, James, Kilmarnock, when you've got the worst attack in the league and the worst defence in the league, there's only one word you can describe for that, and I think it could be relegation. And we've said for a while about Kilmarnock, they've not helped themselves this season.
Yeah, Kilmarnock are a team I've really had an eye on for relegation since the start of this season. When Celtic played them, I think it might have been the second or third game, we put 5 goals past them, and they just didn't look like a team that you thought could really sustain their Premiership season. Derek McKenzie's a quality manager. We saw it with getting them promotion in the first place. But it seems like an insurmountable task for Derek McKenzie to try and keep them in the division, to really be honest with you. But I just want to touch on Kevin Van Veen, as you guys were doing just there. I think he's an absolutely phenomenal player. And I'd love for him to be considered by one of those upper sort of teams in the league, because I think Aberdeen could really be after him, because they had big money for Ferguson and Ramsey in the first place. Add on the money for Duke and Majowski that I assume they're going to get this summer. It seems like it's going to be very big money. You would have to think that they would be perhaps considering a move for Kevin Van Veen.
Yeah, I don't see why not. I think he's shown he can score goals, and I think a lot of these teams are limited in terms of goals. So get a guy like that. And I don't think he's necessarily Old Firm class, but I think he's certainly Aberdeen kind of Hearts Hibs that level. Speaking of Hibs, they have put themselves in a good position, obviously, to achieve Europe. They won 2-1 at home to St Mirren, obviously, big 3 points for Hibs. Again, just two sides that are, they're not too much to play for. Obviously, they're trying to get into that 5th European spot. James, again, Hibs, they've slowly went about their business. They've got top 6, and now they're only a point behind Hearts. And I think a lot of Hibs fans thought that was impossible about even 3 months ago.
Yeah, Johnson's really turned around their fortunes. I was in attendance for a Hibs game. I think it was around December. They lost, I think it was 2 or 3-1 to Ross County. They just looked absolutely dire. But the big win over Aberdeen in what was called the El Sacico, when Goodwin was on the chopping block after that one. And then the big result against Hearts before the split has boosted morale, not just amongst the fans to believe the club can actually do something, but the players as well. And European football is now a real possibility for Hibs. It's something they can really strive for to achieve. And if the players and the fans keep that in mind, with both those in the same cohesive unit, anything's possible.
Yeah, absolutely. Connor, as well, obviously, 2 sides, Hibs and St Mirren. They'll just try to get wins on the board. Obviously, they've got a lot of big games coming up. Excuse me. And Hibs, obviously, just out were the better side in the day.
Yeah, they certainly were. I was definitely impressed with Yuan once again.
Yeah,
I think he's been brilliant for Hibs this season, and I don't know if they'll maybe have the funds for him, but it's definitely a player I'd like to see them go for permanently. However, they just were better on the day, pretty much. St Mirren, obviously getting back into it at about the 64th minute or so. And I think Maynard just missed just a big chance before that, but it was. I think Nisbet should have bagged a couple of goals as well for Hibs on the day. But it certainly sets up Hibs nicely for the next kind of couple of games, obviously. I believe they're only 1 point behind Hearts now in that final game of the season at Tynecastle is really going to be a good one. Should results go that way.
Yeah, it certainly is. Big weekend in the Premiership. Let's move into the mental Friday night that we had in the Championship. We'll start at Queen's Park. Obviously, the title decider. It was like a game of basketball. It really was. It was end to end. Brilliant game of football. Brilliant advertisement for the lower leagues. James, I thought Dundee were just a better side, and I think they have been the better side all season to get that result. And there's talk today, obviously, about Gary Bowyer potentially not being there in the summer. I think that's going to be very, very bizarre if that's the case. And Dundee, I think with Dundee, they've got the better players. They did just see the game out better. I thought their experience won the day, and it was a thrilling end to a really, really exciting game.
Yeah, things were really hectic in that first half. But I had a feeling from watching the game that the class of Dundee was going to shine through at the end, because I knew they were the better team. Then in the end, it did. Once Queen's Park had sort of gassed themselves out, Dundee's quality really shone through. But for me, Dundee are a bit of a yo-yo team at the moment. They just constantly up, down. And I think they'll probably go back there next season if they come back up, especially if Gary Boyer leaves, because he's a class act of a manager. So if they can try and keep hold of him, there might be a real chance of staying up. Because if you're a yo-yo team, that's something you want to avoid. You look at the English Premier League teams like Norwich, they've been going up and down for years, and they've still not been able to rectify that. And that's been since like 2014. So if Dundee can try and fix that, then it would be real for Dundee United. And if Dundee United can stay in the Scottish Premiership, we could really have a Dundee derby, another massive derby in the Premiership next season. So if we can have 3 massive derby games next season, that could be really massive.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we'll get into the playoffs later on because obviously it plays a part in what we're talking about here. But Connor, if there was a way to describe this championship season, it was obviously fog telling Dougie Emery did not know that Morton had in fact scored at one point. Ayr were second in the league at one point, then the next minute they were sitting in 5th. It shows you this was a wacky season, and I think Ayr as well, obviously, points have got to go to them as well. They're sitting in second. Really, really good season. Really just exciting season. What we want in a league like that.
Yeah, it's been an absolute mental season. Obviously, on the very last day, the only team that wasn't playing for anything was Raith. They were sitting in 7th, which is unlucky for Raith supporters because obviously everyone had the kind of excitement of something potentially happening, whether it be relegation, playoffs, or winning the league. But yeah, it's just been so entertaining from a neutral point of view. Maybe the quality's not been the best this season, however, it's certainly been made up entertainment wise. And that Queen's Park Dundee game certainly summed it up. There was screamers, there was scrappy goals, just back and forth. But just what James was kind of saying about Dundee, obviously with them going up, like I could see them probably going back down again next season, just because of how not great the quality was this season.
Mm-hmm.
So, however, the playoffs certainly look good. They've actually got the Party get Thistle game on in the background. That's currently 3-2 to Party because I'm saying this. So, the playoffs should certainly continue that entertainment.
Yeah, I mean, the playoffs are wild just by looking at some of the results coming through just now. League One, not a lot really happened, obviously. We'll get into the playoffs as we get through. Nothing really changed in terms of that. League Two, I'm keen for both of your thoughts in this. This was very hectic as well. Start with James. Bonnyrigg obviously secured safety. I thought at the start, I've got to be honest, I thought a lot of people were bigging Bonnyrigg up at the start of the season to win it. I thought it would maybe take them a season just to get to grips with the standard of the league. And just to get safety, I think, is a massive achievement for Robbie and his side. It really is.
Yeah, Bonnyrigg didn't have the same backing that previous clubs that have come up from those teams have had when they've come into the league. So I think people sort of overestimated how Bonnyrigg would do. I think they're the betting favourites going into the season, actually. But the club, they started fresh, but then the reality check really hit, which coincided with the time I joined the media team at Bonnyrigg. So I was thinking I was a bad luck charm at the time, a real bad run from September to December, really. But since January, I think it was a 4-1 humbling away to Annan that really sort of switched things up. The club, they really assured themselves up defensively. And since that 4-0 loss to Annan in January, they haven't conceded over 2 goals, in a game since January. They've really turned around the fortunes since then. And Bonnyrigg, they've really deserved it with key loan signings coming in, the likes of Paddy Martin and Aaron Arnold from Falkirk and Raith, respectively, coming in. They've really impressed. And Kieran McGackie was a star man at the weekend, and he was a star man in the SPFL Team of the Week. 2 goals to secure the 3-0 win over Elgin and secure Bonnyrigg Rose's place in the SPFL next season. It was massive for the club. 2,000 people turned out.
Mm-hmm.
So it was a massive crowd as well. So I'll look forward to seeing what Bonnyrigg Rose can do next season. Hopefully we can sort of, because we're only 8 points off the playoffs.
Yeah.
It shows how even League Two as Bonnyrigg Rose look down and out. So to finish at that place in the season, that's pretty impressive. So we'll see if Bonnyrigg Rose can expand on that come next season.
Connor, obviously Albion as well, did beat the champion Stirling in the last day, but it wasn't enough. They will go into the pyramid playoff against the Lowland League champion Spartans, who obviously beat Brecon in the playoff to face Albion. It's kind of weird with Albion, obviously, because they've got a player like Charlie Riley, who I think has been I've said he's been the standout player in the league all season. But they are going to need, like, I always think of with the Lowland League team and the Highland League, if they come up, they always appear to me more fresher because they've obviously had that bit of time to kind of focus in the game. Do you know what I mean? So it's going to be interesting. It's going to be a very big couple of weeks for Albion.
Yeah, it's huge. Obviously, kind of the story of the season is, to be honest, the way you said it was just not enough. You could just use the two words because, as James was saying, Bonnig were only 8 points off. We were only 11 points off the playoff, and I think we're the first team in League Two history to finish on the bottom with 39 points.
Yeah.
And we also had a -3 goal difference as well.
-1.
-1 actually. Yeah, sorry, we went up to -1. Obviously, the 2-0 win against Stirling at the weekend. Obviously, it's a big win for confidence beating the champions, but at the same time, I did feel as though Stirling Albion might have took the kind of foot off the gas a little bit, knowing they were champions. At the same time, I'm looking forward to going up against Spartans at the weekend. Obviously, that was a very entertaining fixture between them and Brecon. Obviously, going all the way to a penalty shootout. I think Albion Rovers will have just enough to get through. As you mentioned, Charlie Riley, he'll certainly be important over these next two games. Probably be his last two games for the club.
It certainly will be, yeah.
As the way things are looking, but he's been absolutely brilliant for Rovers. One of the best players I've probably seen at Clifton Hill for the last few years. So yeah, I mean, we are what the team probably with the smallest budget in the league, I'd say. So it's kind of not expected for us to do a playoff push, but still don't really want to be down about there. You know what I mean?
And I think it's that thing as well. Obviously, like when you see some of the teams that have went down in the past, the likes of East Stirling, Cowdenbeath, Berwick, another example, it's very hard to come back up. And I think that will be a big thought for the. Do you think as well? Obviously, with Brian leaving and Sandy coming in, kind of that close to the end of the season, do you think that had a positive impact, or was that what do you kind of think of that?
I think it's been kind of hard to tell so far. It's been good to see that we've actually been scoring goals at home because under like Brian, like the results were so weird. It's like you could go to Dumbarton and win 5-1, but then you could lose 1-0 to Forfar like the very next week at home.
Mm-hmm.
So it was too inconsistent, and it was kind of something the fans could kind of see coming, like something because the results just weren't, getting there. But I think that has been like a little bit of positive, and obviously introduction of Ewan Vitali into the side, I think he's been kind of breath of fresh air, to be honest. The weekend has seen that with the front three of Riley, Vitali, and Bevan. And I'd expect him to probably play against Spartans as well at the weekend.
It's going to be a very interesting end to the season for Albion and Spartans. We'll touch a wee bit in the playoffs. We don't have full-time results yet. Just running through some of these results. Obviously, if you might have saw, Partick Thistle 3, Queen's Park 3. Connor's going to tell us when it's full-time, just so we're right. But a couple of score lines that catch my eye. Airdrie Onions 5, Falkirk 2. Airdrie were 5-0 up. Falkirk pulled it back. 2 red cards as well. 1 for Airdrie, 1 for Falkirk. One result, Connor, I'm going to come to you for this. Annan 6, Dumbarton 0.
Yeah,
that's very bizarre.
Certainly a shocker. Not what I expected at all, obviously. Dumbarton were kind of one of the kind of top odds to kind of go up this season, coming down from League One. And with the kind of squad they'd assembled, they'd essentially cherry-picked Albion over quite a bit. They've got quite a few of our players in there, Aaron Lyons and David Wilson and stuff, but not going well at all tonight.
James, any eye-catching results in there? Obviously, we've not got full results yet, but Airdrie 5, Falkirk 2 is certainly one that catches your eye as well. Falkirk, semi-finalists of the Scottish Cup, and they've been humbled by Airdrie.
I had a feeling Airdrie were going to get a pretty convincing defeat, but not that convincing. I've always thought that the gap between those top clubs in League One compared to the bottom clubs in the Championship isn't that far away.
Mm-hmm. So
I think Airdrie could really cause some trouble for Hamilton if they can get onto that playoff game. And as you were talking about there, Annan, I'm surprised it was 6-0, but I'm not surprised that they've beat Annan, the likes of Tommy Goss, the top scorer in the league. And they've got a couple of good wingers there as well. I think it's Johnson. Chris Johnson's a very impressive.
And I really like the guy Wallace.
I think he's an ex-Kilmarnock player. He's been one of the standouts this season. So we've got him and Goss Goss with the goals and Johnson with the assists. There have been some real standouts for Anne this season. Rose have been on the hand of a couple of humblings from Anne this season. So Anne are a really impressive team, and I wouldn't be surprised to see them go up in the playoffs.
It has just went 6-2 to Airdrie as well. So we're, again, just shows you that there's goals flying in. And we did think that as well, obviously. Like Clyde, I think this could be a massive day for Clyde as well. They're winning 1-0 as it stands away to East Fife. Could be huge for them. And obviously they'll have a big chance against, it's probably going to be Annan. So if Clyde can get through and go up against Annan, it could be very, very interesting. And it's going to, as I say, we're in playoff season. The leagues have been wrapped up. We've got 4 games left to cover in the Premiership. So it's going to be a fascinating end to the season. And that is going to do us for this week's show. And first of all, thank my guest. First of all, James McKenzie.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. And Connor Ryan. Best of luck for Albion this weekend against Spartans.
Thanks very much, Scott.
Thanks very much for everyone tuned in. Please follow us on social media and subscribe to our YouTube and podcast channels. Thanks, guys. We'll see you soon.